Hey, hello, how are you? Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it. I appreciate you bringing your main character energy to this situation because you are, right? Just like I am. We're all main characters. There's no NPCs. It's all main characters, right? So anyway, so where was I going to go today? So today I was thinking about uh, Camus, the French philosopher, and I was thinking about his comments about Sisyphus, the character from Greek mythology, and it intersected for me with these thoughts about Babylon 5 and the things Kosh says. So that's a slight overview. We'll see if we actually stick to that. So um, there's a thing called Greece, right? It has a long-running history, and one of the stories that came out of ancient Greece is the story about Sisyphus. Sisyphus was this dude who pissed off the gods, which, a lot of the Greek mythological stories seem to be about pissing off the gods. And after he pissed off the gods, his punishment was to push this boulder up up this mountain every day. And every day it would roll back down. And he'd have to start over. And so every single day, he had to do the same thing over and over and over again. And that repetitiveness, I think, is something that we can all feel and we can all appreciate. So along comes Camus. It's Camus for those of you playing along at home. And he wanted to go ahead and explore life. And so one of the things that he settled on was that we have to imagine Sisyphus happy. So this guy, just so we have a little bit of context, believed that the real goal of philosophy was trying to figure out why not to kill yourself. All right, so that's some context. So for him, he decided that we have to imagine that Sisyphus is happy pushing this boulder up every day. And I think we've all been there where we feel like life is this redundant thing that just happens over and over and over and over and over again. And that your life is a continuing march, pushing this boulder, pushing these tasks, completing these things that you don't really want to do. And for Camus, his thought was that you have to accept that is what life is. That's how life plays out. And that's what you have to do. And I can appreciate that perspective. I can feel that sometimes. Sometimes I'm there too. Sometimes I feel as though it's just this repetitive thing that happens over and over and over again. And I have to just suck it up. And I have to just go ahead and do what I have to do each day to get by, to complete it. But those are dark days. And just having to feel like I have to do that doesn't go away. And imagining Sisyphus happy doesn't have to play out until my dark days. Sometimes I have to imagine Sisyphus just being happy, but so let's pause there for a second. So let's loop over to Babylon 5, all right, which is a fantastic show. It does a bunch of political explorations, sociological explorations, explorations about what the past was, what the future is, the different goals about life and what the meaning of life is, what the meaning of society is, what the meaning of existence is. And it is a very rich experience, and I highly recommend it. And so one of the characters is Kosh, and he plays the role in this of the mysterious ancient teacher guy who's going to go ahead and explain to you about, what things are in the universe, sort of. But he does it that riddle way. He doesn't give you a straight answer about things. He says this thing that's like, this thing which could be interpreted a million ways. So the one for me that I'm really stuck on, just in general for life, is there's an episode where one of the characters is complaining about how do we stop this thing from happening? And Kosh says to him, the avalanche has begun. It is too late for the pebbles to vote. And it was very poignant and pointed at the specific things that were taking place. But for me, it was also a general, it's become this very general thing, because just like all these words of wisdom, these riddles that the wise ones give, right? The people on the journey, right? It has so many depths and ranges of meaning. So, for example, one of the real depths and ranges on this is that all of life is that avalanche. Like we didn't start it, right? We were born, and there was so much inertia for so much that there was nothing that could have stopped it, right? There's nothing that you could have done in your life that would have displaced so many of these pressures, right? Let's do one ridiculous one, like people wearing clothes. There's nothing in your life that you could have done which would change the culture so drastically that people would stop wearing clothes. It's just not going to happen. And we live in that. And we can look at that from a historical perspective, right? We can look at what took place, right? So the Soviet Union fell in 1991, and there was nothing that could have happened in Gorbachev's rulership in order to go ahead and stop that. World War I took place in 1914, and even if the Black Hand had not assassinated the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, there's no way that World War I would not have still happened. It may not have sparked because of that, but it wouldn't have not happened. There's nothing that I could do to stop people from having to eat food. Nothing within my life so far, and most likely nothing by the end of it. I am a big fan that anything's possible. The probability is where I judge things based off of, and so the probability of me developing some way for people to stop having to eat food is practically non-existent, and so on. And so even having people driving cars, right? The possibility isn't there. This language we speak, right? I mean, it changes and it morphs, right? And I think that gets to the point about the avalanche, because there's no way we can change the past. There's no way we can change the inertia of all the things that go downhill, because that's all there is to it. And so, but that doesn't mean that we are powerless to do the thing. We can change things downstream of us. It may not be anything radical. It may not be anything immediate to right now. But if all of history is a single slope going down, and you are this point on the slope, and you are sliding down too, not only do you need to make a choice about whether you're going to be tumbling with all the pebbles, or you're going to learn to surf, right? But you also need to understand that how you cut your board and how you move and the influence you have on the pebbles around you changes the downhill dramatically. Nothing you can do right now could make it so people don't wear clothes in 1,000 years, to continue our ridiculous analogy. But in 3,000 years, something you do right now could start to have that impact. But you can't do it alone. It would have to be a collective effort. Other pebbles would have to make the same decision. They would have to go ahead and change the course. That's true of anything. The way in which we treat our ecology, the way that we treat each other, the way that people act like they're the main character and other people are NPCs, the way that we write, the language we speak, the lack of preciseness in our tone and regulation of emotion, right? You can't change it right now for everybody. You can't. And you'll most likely die before you've had more than a thumb worth of impact on the world. But your impact continues to trickle down. It continues to shuffle the rocks that take place. And by the time that generation is born who have completely forgotten you ever existed, the impact, if we're still here, of your changes could be so vast that they could be what fundamentally changes it. And so we need to remember that history isn't just made by the names we remember, made by the individuals who get the credit. We need to remember that it's a collective effort, and it's a whole bunch of main characters making decisions that impact their own lives and the lives of others. And so I get trying to imagine Sisyphus happy. I get why people would imagine Sisyphus happy. I get why that's a useful tool from time to time. But the fact of the matter is that it's more than just Sisyphus being happy and pushing a rock. I think it's more accurate to imagine that we are all Sisyphus and we're all tumbling down the avalanche that we didn't even start. We were born into the avalanche began, and now the avalanche is all flowing. And we don't have any say about the avalanche. We don't have any say about the fact that it's happening. But we do have a choice about whether or not we're drugged down the hill, whether we surf the hill. And the fact of the matter is both slopes happen. Sometimes you're going to be drugged, sometimes you're going to surf. And that's going to be the mix. And on top of that, you got to understand and remember that your surfing changes things. Your tumbling, it changes things too. It tugs and it pulls. Because the avalanche doesn't just happen. The avalanche happens because we're all doing stuff. The avalanche is the result of us. We cause the avalanche to continue. And yeah, I mean, if all of us stood up at one moment, we could stop the avalanche falling the way that it does. But future generations will still inherit the avalanche that we now created based on that. If we woke up tomorrow and we all were like, nope, we're done doing things this way, we could literally do that. We could literally change it. You just have to coordinate it and make the decision. But it doesn't change anything about the fact that tomorrow someone else will inherit that avalanche that we've created. And that's what we got to do. So thank you, Kosh, for helping me realize that I'm a pebble in an avalanche. And thank you, Camus, for helping me understand that sometimes you got to push the rock. But I want everyone to remember that the rock we're pushing is us. And we're not even really pushing it. We're learning to either tumble with it, or surf it, and a little bit of both. I look forward to seeing you later. Thank you.